This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. I am Dr. Duke, and I am joined today by Alex Newman. Alex, welcome. Good to see you.
Great to be here. Thank you, Duke.
Well, we're going to talk about some brave new world stories today about how science and technology and godless immorality is deciding now that there are all sorts of things we can do to bioengineer human pregnancies. And we're going to start with a story here. A professor makes the argument that brain-dead women and even potentially brain-dead men should be used as surrogates for anyone wishing to avoid the burdens of gestating a fetus. So let's just start with that real quick. Notice that childbirth, completely natural, is now the burdens of gestating a fetus. So convincing women that pregnancy is a disease, and let's use unwilling dead people, brain dead people, to go ahead and become the farms for these babies so moms don't have to worry about things like, stretch marks and whatever. It's pretty creepy, Alex.
It's incredibly creepy, Duke. And this is just the next logical step in this long progression we've seen of the crazy feminism and the crazy war on the family, where for generations now, American women and women across the Western world have been told that motherhood is oppressive, family is oppressive, children are a burden. You're much better off going to push papers around in an office for 40 years so you can, become a manager than actually having children and raising a family. And, it's absolutely sick. And so this is just the next logical step. And of course, the next step after this is actually Aldous Huxley, Brave New World, where the government will just start hatching babies in hatcheries, and then the government will raise the babies. And then presto, you just completely obliterate the family. That's where these maniacs are going, make no mistake.
So according to the report, which was published in the Journal of Theoretical Medicine and Bioethics, it was entitled Whole Body Gestational Donation by Anna Smajdor, a professor of practical philosophy. I love that, practical philosophy, at the University of Oslo in Norway. She says basically the whole body gestational donation offers an alternative means of gestation for prospective parents who wish to have children but prefer not to gestate, right? Yeah, I want to have babies, but I don't want to actually have babies. Here we have the same professor on a different topic to get a sense of how lunatic she is. It's not related to the story, but here is Anna talking about her philosophy.
I think one of the difficulties is that compassion is incredibly difficult to define. It's incredibly difficult to pin down and to measure. And if you've had any dealings with medical students, you'll know that they're very interested in how they're going to be assessed. And for assessments to be fair, they have to be transparent. You have to say to the student, this is what you did do, this is what you didn't do. Compassion is so slippery that it's very hard to pin it down in that kind of way. So I think if we try too hard to do that, we may lose the essence of what's valuable about compassion in the first place.
Read the Gospels. Compassion is putting somebody else above you, to be connected to the suffering of others, to sacrifice for people. Now, it doesn't surprise me that sterile, impotent, plastic philosophers like this woman wouldn't get it, but it stuns me how the most obvious virtues in the modern world now are ungraspable by the technocracy that is shaping our future.
Yeah, and what we're seeing here, too, Duke, is a deliberate effort to completely redefine morality and ethics, in fact. And I saw this firsthand. I was in Egypt for the most recent UN Climate Summit on the Sinai Peninsula. They had hundreds of these religious leaders of the world coming together. They did like more than 40 religious events. And the most blasphemous thing, the UN had put out a report shortly before the program started where they said that the system of ethics and morality that evolved over thousands of years with mankind was really no longer suitable to kind of take care of Mother Earth and do the other things that the UN thinks need done. So I said we actually need a new system of morals. And so in keeping with that, a bunch of religious leaders of the world walked up to the top of Mount Sinai. They whipped out a new 10 commandments. And so instead of like, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not worship idols. Thou shalt not lie, cheat, and steal. It was like, oh, compassion means hearing the cries of Mother Earth and things like this. It's absolutely bonkers, but people need to recognize these aren't just like lone kooks that are acting in the ivory towers of the universities, feasting off our tax money, disconnected from reality. This is part of a deliberate, conscious move to completely redefine morality, to completely redefine ethics, ultimately to smash the family and turn the world towards some sort of what they consider to be a utopia, but which will end up being one of the most dystopian situations that one could imagine.
Professor Smajdor is not concerned about traditional values, certainly, but she was concerned because some feminists, Alex, raised the question, is it ethical to require brain-dead women to carry babies? Because, I mean, on top of being brain dead, even being worse than brain dead is having to carry a baby. So the feminists objected, and here's what she said, right? Addressing possible feminist concerns, she made the argument that, quote, the prospect of the unconscious woman's body filled and used by others as a vessel is a vivid illustration of just what feminists have fought for many years, the report stated. And so this is literally what they're dealing with. Can we even burden brain-dead women with babies? Because, like I said, that's worse than being brain-dead. We have a related story here, and this is another doozy. This is the American Medical Association, and they are a journal arguing that there is, quote, no moral reason why taxpayers shouldn't subsidize uterus transplants for men. I love the use of morality by the American Medical Association. So basically, using scarce resources, the left, the American Medical Association keeps telling us how we have to ration healthcare. There's not enough of it, not enough to go around, not enough money. And so morally, the American Medical Association says there's no reason why you shouldn't put a gun to taxpayers' heads to transplant uteruses into the bodies of men. Hey, why don't we transplant prostates into women? Let's do that too. How about that? I mean, this is ridiculous. And the fact that whenever has the American Medical Association actually cared about morality? But in this case, the moral thing is to rip uteruses out of women and stick them in med.
And this just shows you why the American Medical Association and so many other prominent institutions of the establishment are worse than a joke. I mean, the AMA is a bastion of unbelievable quackery, of unbelievable madness. At this point, before going to visit a doctor, I would call up and say, look, are you affiliated in any way with the American Medical Association? Because if you are, I'm not stepping near your quack office. This is absolutely bonkers. But again, it's in keeping with what we're discussing here, Duke. This is an effort to completely obliterate the family. And we've seen the progression. It's been so rapid, right? First it was, we just don't want to be persecuted, right? They found some homosexuals say, well, we just want to be married. We just want to dance naked in front of your children. Now the next step is, now there is no such thing as a man or a woman. It's a social construct. And if there's no such thing as a man or a woman, the obvious logical extension of that is there's no such thing as a mother or a father. And so family is an artificial construct. And that's where this is all headed. This is not happening in a vacuum. This is not just kookery and quackery and madness. This is strategic. This is deliberate. And it's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, it is. And we have a doctor here who's going to explain to you just how these uterus transplants work. Take a look.
How much do these surgeries cost the taxpayers?
It's about $100,000 to $300,000. The uterus is transplanted from a living or cadaveric donor. The patient is then put on immunosuppression. There's in vitro fertilization. The baby is carried to term. There's a C-section done, at which time they also remove the uterus that was put in to avoid further immunosuppression. And that's how it's been done.
So does that mean biological men would be able to have children?
Medically, it's possible. The question is, should it be done? It is odd that the AMA is choosing to really focus on this activist position rather than fund the important research we need in transgender medicine. What's the regret rate after transition surgery? What's the long-term complication rate of hormones? What's the suicide rate in people on hormones versus children who get long-term
Are they not conducting those studies?
those studies are not being done. Instead of funding those studies, they've chosen to take an activist position. And it's very hard to do research in this field, Ainsley, because the activists have run a lot of people out of town. The reasonable doctors and objective scientists have been run out of town.
And I love this one, a peer-reviewed paper, right? And we know what peer review means, a bunch of radical leftists giving the thumbs up to the most ridiculous arguments. But a peer-reviewed paper published in the American Medical Association Journal of Ethics concluded that, quote, if there are limits on subsidies, the case could be made that no moral obstacle stands in the way of justifying subsidies for UTX people. I love this. They're UTX people. That's the phrase, UTX, uterus transplantation people, for some trans women and trans men, just as there seems to be no fully persuasive argument against gestating a child via UTX. And this is Orwellian to me. You are putatively, you're really not, but you're pretending to be a clinical, empirical, scientific organization dedicated to the study of medicine. And now you're becoming priests and prophets. You're becoming sages and doom warriors. You have become everything but scientists to push your personal political prospects, your ideas of what justice is. You are creating some kind of techno-utopia, completely ignoring, as the person we just heard, the doctor we just said, you're not even worried about what the consequences are, as you weren't with the vaccines. Every arm gets the shot. Every man who thinks he's a woman gets a uterus. And we're not going to care the least little bit about what the consequences of that might be.
So what they want to do here is, because one of the biggest arguments against the transgender is that, well, you know, women are women. Not only are they born women, they have different private parts, but they can give birth to babies. Well, now they say, well, if we can make men give birth to babies, well, then we can really say that transgender men are actually women, which is, of course, ludicrous. Every cell in your body still testifies to the fact that you're either a man or a woman. They're never going to be able to change that. But there's another really important point here, and that is that they want to make sure as many children as possible can be handed to people who could not have them naturally, right? God designed a system where it takes a man and a woman together to create new life, new human life. And what they want to do is undermine that. They are trying to play God here, and it is just frightening. It's dangerous. And frankly, I mean, we shouldn't be talking about whether tax money should be used to fund this. We should be talking about how do we stop these maniacs from ruining and destroying society, much less at taxpayer expense.
Well, you may remember this was years and years and years ago now. I'm getting old, so are you. But there was a movie called Junior in which Arnold Schwarzenegger got pregnant, and it was out loud comedy. It was pure comedy. Now it's reality and it's tragedy. It's amazing how the dumbest, most satirical, stupid things now becomes reality because of all of this refusal to deal with reality and the way things are. Alex, this is a pretty stunning thing. Like you said, I'll give you the last word. But wow. And no one seems to be overseeing the mad scientists who are planning this stuff.
Yeah, and it goes right back to what Karl Marx said, right? We got to abolish the family. Women should be held in common. Children should be raised and educated by the state. That's what ultimately these maniacs want. There's a larger purpose. And, I think in response to this, we need sensible people everywhere. We need Christians who still, at least self-proclaimed Christians, make up over 2/3 of the United States of America. We need now to recommit ourselves to the idea of family, need to recommit ourselves to the idea of marriage, and we need to stand firm on God's divine created order and really recognize this for what it is. These aren't just stupid ideas. These are evil ideas, and they must be resisted.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and you hit it on the head. Unless the people of good conscience fight back, the future is going to be a technological nightmare, and that's going to wrap up the show. If you enjoy this program, please subscribe to our brand new podcast channel. Simply search Dr. Duke Show on your favorite platform. It's free. And don't forget to follow us on our new Rumble channel. Visit rumble.com/FreedomProject, and you can follow us. For all of us here at the Dr. Duke Show, thank you. And for Alex Newman, I know I can say thanks again, and we'll see you next time.